In this video, we'll talk about parent to child communication on action at parent component. So the approach will be almost same. The parent will pass the data, but not directly on click of some action. The action can be on click of button or on change of input field that it will pass the data. In the child component, the property which is public by @API decorator will cache the data and show on the screen. The approach is almost same. The handling is little bit different. So let's go to our VS Code. So in this example also, I'm going to use our same component that we are using from the last two videos, that is parent component. I just put the comments to give you a better clarity. This example is for simple data. This example is for complex data. Now we're going to talk about passing data on an action. And to pass the action, first we need to create the input field, I would say. So to create the input field, I will go to our library, that is component reference. Here I'll type input. If you have the code, you don't need to type the code. You should know where to look into. So in the drop down, you look into the text input. And from here, you just copy paste any input just to get the exact design. Come back to your VS Code. And here I'm gonna place the input field. I'll change this type to number. And I'll say enter percentage. Okay. We'll not talk about validation and all right now. We are just focusing on how on change or an action I can pass the data to the child. So now I have an input field and I want to pass the data to the child. So first I need a child component, and here we're gonna build a child component, that is progress bar. So let's create the component. I'll say P2C progress component. Now your component is ready. I want a progress bar here. So I'll again go to my library reference. I'll say progress. I'll click on progress bar. We'll take the simple progress bar code, that is single line lightning progress bar. It has a value 50 and it's a large size, and we'll just embed this component into our parent component. We know how to embed this. E hyphen P2C hyphen progress hyphen component. And now we have embedded it, and before that we can add some margin bottom as well, and we can create the card here as well actually to get the better view on the screen. So I'll just copy paste the card, and here is the card component. On the card, parent to child communication and action, whatever we have built, I'm just placing it inside these cards. So I'm saying type number and enter percentage and the my component progress. So let's deploy these components and see how it looks on the screen. So I'll deploy this, and now I should see a card with the heading parent to child communication on action, which has some input field as well as the progress bar. So now it's deployed. Let's go to our page and refresh the page. Now on the bottom you can see there is an input field and there is a progress bar. Now I want, if you look at our code, this field is at parent level and this progress bar is at child level. I want, whenever I'll change some value here, my progress bar will change accordingly. Okay, that's the actual purpose of this demo, which means parent to child communication on action. Let's go and try to achieve that. So first thing, we need to understand what all properties get changed. So I'll come to my progress component. I'll see there is a hard-coded value already in the value. So we'll say replace this with the property progress value, and we'll create this property inside the JS file progress value. But we want to cache the data from the parent, then we have to change this local property to a public property using @API decorator, and we need to import the API from the LWC package. Now this is a progress value and this is a public property. Now I'll go to the parent component HTML and I'll say, hey listen, I want some value to be passed from you. Okay, and it says okay, I'll pass it, but I can pass hard-codedly, but I don't want it. I want whenever the input value change something, this value should get passed. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, I'll pass the percentage property to you. Okay, right now the percentage property is not there, but I'll create it in a minute. And my attribute should be a kebab case, so I'll change it to kebab case from camel case. First, I'll go to my HTML, to my JS file. I'll create a property percentage. Okay, I'll initialize it with the 10. Okay, so by default, when the progress bar loads, it will receive the 10 value as the default value. And I want whenever I change it here something in my input field, it's update that percentage value. For that, I need event handler. So I'll say on key up change handler, and I'll say the value attribute for you is the percentage. That's the value attribute, and change handler will get called as you start typing on key up, and this change handler will receive an event, and I want this value to be updated. So I'll say this dot percentage equal to event dot target dot value. So as soon as you type something, that value comes here. It's update our percentage property. As soon as your percentage property gets updated, it will pass down to our child component, because that is bind to a child component attribute progress value. As soon as the updated value goes down, progress value will listen that value. It comes to here progress value, and once it receives the updated value, it re-render the component and it update the value here. So let's deploy and see whether it's working fine or not. And this is your third component. Now you know how to create alert, how to create carousel, and now the third component, how to create the progress bar. So I refresh the page and let's go down. Now you see by default we set it to 10 and the input field receive the 10 and the progress bar has the 10 value. As soon as I start changing it, now you see my progress bar is changing accordingly. So if it is 50, 30, 20, 19, 18, so everything is updating in the child. So this is an example in which I am demonstrating you how you can pass the value to a child on click or on performing some action. This is a basic example. You can play around with it. You can build any other example that you have in your mind while practicing. You get a better idea. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next video.